Jade.
Hi, Chanel.
I love when I say someone's name and like what their response is going to be. I was like, hi, friend.
Right.
But welcome to Spiritual Slang.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yay.
I made it.
Literally, by the grace of God.
and it is.
It is. But before we go into anything, I always like to say how we know each other.
Mm-hmm.
How did we meet? Oh, we met on a small group.
Yes, we did. Yes. And then I think you just said something like you always do, said something relatable. And I was just like, I like her. And I think I just reached out to you, I think, and kind of just asked advice just because I think that we were so relatable at some point. And especially with my journey, being a believer and being a Christian woman, I just feel I was like, okay, great. We have people that, had the flesh side for a minute. And, with someone that's trying to come up, I was just okay, I want to be able to talk to somebody that I know that can relate to me, because I think that sometimes I had trouble with that for so long. So I think that meeting you was finally it was just finally I have somebody kind of not mentor, but you're a big sister kind of to
Aww.
me, And then we hung out, and then we went to Runyon Canyon and stuff.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Girl.
Runyon Canyon. Yeah, and you didn't
had a whole vertigo. I was like, am I old? I was I don't think I could do this for a while. Because, man, you can walk. I mean, you can hike.
I know.
You were ahead of me. You said, come on.
Hike.
I'm okay.
I love to hike. Okay. But, okay, that is how we met. We met on a small group a few years ago, or a couple years ago at least.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to have you on the episode, too, because we are relatable in the sense that we, have had our fleshly side, our BC side, before Christ's side, and then got delivered.
Right.
And, it's a process to get delivered and stuff. And we've had so many, honest, transparent conversations up until this point, and just, vulnerable conversations of, where we're struggling or, where we need help in and stuff like that. And I think those conversations, I was I want to capture it on a podcast. Those conversations are so relatable. There are so many people that have come from a different side, didn't grow up in the church maybe, or just had a different side of life or whatever, experiencing worldly things and everything like that, and feel some sort of shame to come to the church, or don't know how to get build a relationship with God whilst leaving that life behind, right? In a sense, So that's why I wanted to have you on. Yeah. So it'll be one of our little phone calls.
I'm excited. Yeah.
Let's pretend we're on the phone.
We've been talking on the phone for a minute.
I know.
You're it's time to go to bed.
All right, let me pray you out, and let's go. But for beginners, tell us a little bit about your journey to building a relationship with God.
Okay. So when I've always been a believer of God. I was raised in a church, but not strictly, it's not you have to wake up and all that stuff, or go every Wednesday and all that. It was just more so of, I know I would get up, go to church when I was little and stuff, but I wouldn't really mentally be there. I'd be those kids where I lay down on my mom's lap and just look, I'm here. And as I got older, I always I prayed and all that, pray before you eat. But then I didn't really get to a point of really wanting to get to know the God, probably until I moved out here, which was 2018, I think. And I went to one for the first time in a small group and all that. I got baptized in that time, December 14th and all that. It was nice because that I knew that that was a moment when I decided to choose God fully, because girl, I was balling. You would think somebody's wrong with me. I remember one of the ushers or whatnot, she was it's okay, we're here now. You can stop crying. I was I'm trying so hard. And so when they baptized me, I felt weirdly enough, I did see a light. Maybe it was just the sun peeking out of the cloud, but you look, it's God. And it was just, I realized things were about to change. And then, but I still kind of lived in the flesh a little bit more. And I mean, still do, but a lot more back then. And really honing into everything, to the point where I'm okay, it's just me and you. It was last year. That's when I was because every moment I kept wanting to get closer, But the thing is, it's like, it's one of those things like, okay, I want to get closer, but you have to actually walk in it. And it was kind of hard because I was like, well, no, I don't want to, because like I still want to go in here and turn up. And so last year I told myself, like, I was just in a really depressed moment. I was like really sad. I was like, I don't feel like myself. I lost myself, like, to the point where like it kind of made me so sad that it scared me. And I was like, okay, like I have to pray. I have to worship. I have to read the Bible, even if I don't even know what I'm reading. Like, I read about Job and his life. I'm like, oh, that's me. But then I didn't finish it because I was just like, it was long, but I just actively wanted to seek him, and now coming into this new year, like, it's only been a month and I just feel like I feel like our relationship is stronger than ever, but I knew it took time and it would take time, and it has to happen naturally and not forcefully, because that's something that I felt like also I was doing, and I think it was hindering me when it came to like my relationship with God, because I was like, I have to be this. I have to do this. Like, there's like people over here like changing, like they're talking about like their lives changed and how they used to be of the flesh and all that. And I'm like, well, I'm still here. So how y'all do it? What's the secret? What's the code? What he tell you? And now more than ever, like, I'm just so grateful. And now I like, all I want to do is just like stay in the presence, because something that like I prayed to recently, I was like, God, like, even when you do grant me the things that I am praying for, I really do pray that I stay with you, because I know there's times where I don't bring you with me. And yet, even though you brought the good in my life, I still had to have you in it, because even though something might be good, bad things can still happen, or just negative things can come around. So like, but the thing that doesn't change is you. And that's something that like I realized. So every day I'm just actively like hanging on tight in his hand like a little girl, because I was like, please, like, don't let go. Like,
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that you're in a space now of like just wanting to go deeper with the Lord and get to know him more. But one of the things that you said about like the flesh and stuff, well, one, doesn't matter like how far someone has come with the Lord, it's a constant decision to die to your flesh every day. Like, we are flesh and bone, and so like there are things that come up that tempt us still, or may tempt us, or may get us distracted, or may get us thinking about things that we shouldn't be thinking about, things like that. But it's making the choice to die to yourself every day, but I think what you touched on was really good, and your story is very it's very relatable to a lot of walks when you come from like BC days, before Christ days, right? And you get saved, and it's not like it's going to be this radical instant change in your behavior, in your mindset, in your actions. Like, yes, you have this change of like, I'm a believer and I know God is real and I want to do this with him, but everything else is a process, And so when I got saved, I've been in this game for like 6 years, but when I started walking with the Lord in like 2017, I started walking with him, but I made my relationship with the Lord work for me, and the rules work for me.
Yep.
Right? So like, even in celibacy and purity, like, if I'm going to be 100% honest, I was like, ain't no way I'm going to be celibate and waiting for marriage.
Right.
So, and this is like me going to church already, right? And I was like, but you know what I'll do? I won't have sex until I love someone.
Yeah.
And then that'll be okay like that, right? And so I was kind of making my relationship with God, or like relationship with God, work for my life and what I wanted, versus the other way around, right? We're allowing God to like fully change me. And then later that year, I was like, oh no, I'm actually gonna wait until marriage, and it was just the process. Like, the Lord takes us through process with everything, and so like partying still, like, I still wanted to go out when I got saved. Like, that wasn't a thing where it was like I got saved and all of a sudden the next day it was never a thought in the world about it, but I still wanted to go out, and I still did go out. But the more and more I did it, I felt like it felt less and less like me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, something you taught me, and I use it so much now, the word, it's appetite. Because it really is like a thing of, even if you keep doing it, whether that's like, being intimate with someone or partying and all that stuff, it's like, you can keep doing it, and it feels good in that moment, but also it's like the conviction after is not worth it. Because like for me, like I sit I sit in the slums in the room. I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm shaming myself and all that stuff. But then also at the same time, it's like, okay, you feel this way. You don't want to feel this way, but you have to be better.
Yeah.
It's something that like my friend, like our friend Mariah, she told me. I don't know who it is though, like as far as like where she's quoted it, but basically the term is I think it's behave, believe, and belong. Maybe belong, believe, and behave. And so when she said that to me, like I was just like interesting because like one, like, you know, you have to like realize like at the end of the day, like whatever flesh like you have, it's like you gotta realize God already knew you were gonna do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He already knew before you even made that mistake. He already knew before you answered that text saying I'm on the way. You know, and then realizing that like you have to believe that like one, God does love you, and then believe that like you can like be saved from it and move forward from it. And then also like just behaving, just doing better, like being better. You know what I mean? But it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, you know. It's friend, I don't know. Like
friend.
It's so hard.
No,
like
it is.
Because I can say all this and all that stuff, but like, girl, at the end of the day, like I'm gonna be fighting. You know, it really is a term of fighting your demons.
But that's it's hard, but it's like worth it.
It is,
and that's what you have to make the choice. You know, it's like either I'm gonna continue to allow my flesh to take me over, or I'm gonna die to myself and become who the Lord wants me to be. Yeah, or I'm going to die to myself and become who the Lord wants me to be. And it's like, which one do you want? You know, it's our choice. The Lord gives us choice. He doesn't force us to be in relationship with him or to do life a certain way. But it's like when you choose the Lord, he changes your appetite. He changes the things you like. And it's just continuing to allow that change to happen and to be convicted and not feel shamed. Like I get shamed too when I get convicted because the enemy will be up on my street telling me all these things of what I should not be doing and why I should. Yeah, you shouldn't have a podcast. You shouldn't do this now because you messed up there or whatever. You know, like how are you going to lead people? All these things. But like the Lord doesn't shame. That's the enemy. The Lord corrects and he makes it aware of what you did that was wrong and shows you like that you need to grow in that area. And then after that, it's like the Lord forgets, right? Once we repent, the Lord will forgive and forget. And one of the things I've had to work on was forgetting as well, you know? But like you said, like that feeling isn't good, right? Like because your heart is in the space of like wanting to be with the Lord and wanting to grow with the Lord, anytime you do it, anytime you mess up, it doesn't feel good. Yeah. So like, what's the point? It doesn't even feel good. And it's like, anytime I'm like on track with the Lord and I feel like, okay, I'm doing good and like I feel so much peace and so much joy. And it's like, that's what I'm striving for, not for temporary satisfaction or temporary like, or whatever it is, you know, that I'm falling short of. Because sometimes the falling short could even happen with anger. Yeah. You know, like it doesn't have to always be like a sexual thing or a drinking thing or whatever, but it could just be anger.
Oh, girl, look, worked on that. Okay. Worked on that because they're like, even like conversations, when people like piss you off, it's like, oh, you just don't know. Yeah. I want to say something so bad. But then like what I've learned is, you know, not to be quick to speak.
I was thinking of that scripture. Be slow to speak, slow to anger and slow to speak.
There you go. Look, we're getting there. You know, we're still learning about the knowing the verses on top of the head. I only know Jeremiah 29:11. No, but yeah. But like I just feel like it's you like mentally you have to like while people talk, you have to like be like, okay, God, look, I need to be understandable. Even like relationships or friendships, like it's like I have to be understandable. I have to like understand like not everything can be me. I have to hear them out and all that. You know what I mean? But like I guess like a question for you that like I have is like, do you feel like you've bounced quicker as far as from when you first started versus where you are now, like as far as the decisions you make or all that, you know what I mean? Because like we still make the mistakes, but like sometimes I feel like we learn from our lessons and not do it versus still doing it and falling back multiple times and then like, okay, I get it, I'm not gonna do it anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think it varies, to be honest, but I feel like I'm able to not shame myself anymore anytime I do fall, because I am human and I am sinful in nature, you know? And there are moments where I'm weaker, and there's moments where I'm weaker that I give in to the temptation that the enemy's trying to throw my way, whether that is like anger stuff or whatever, you know? But I think, so I do think I bounce back quicker from when it actually happens. But one of the things that I've had to realize is, and I don't know if I spoke about this before, or maybe it was an audio episode, I don't know. But what I had recently realized, and the Lord gave me this revelation, was basically that how flawed I am, like as I continue to learn how flawed I am, which was a hard realization to have when you're a perfectionist,
right?
You know, because you want to be perfect in everything and you don't want to mess up in any way. And so that was me in every aspect of my life. But the more I realize how flawed I am and become aware of it and okay with it, in the sense of that's okay, like God knows that but still loves you, I'm able to see how good God is and how amazing he is, that even in my flawed nature and even in my nature of not doing better when I know better, or continuing to fall in a space, you know, that like he still shows up in my life and still allows me to do something like this. You
so
know,
kind of like a scale where it's like at first you were always shaming, but now like balancing it to like, well, no, but also at the same time grace and like God, like, you know,
and he's gonna use that,
yeah,
you know, and he does use it every time. Like I'm willing to accept the conviction and learn from it now, and I'm like, okay, it's not about shame. What do I need to learn from this? Where do I need to improve? Because my prayers are, Lord, reveal things in me that are hidden. And then they get revealed by getting triggered. And then like, I'm like, hold on.
Right, relax.
And then I'm mad at myself for like falling in that area. But it's like, you wanted to be your blind spots to be revealed, you know? And that's something I've been praying recently too, is like, Lord, reveal the blind spots in me. Like whether that's jealousy, whether that's anger, whether that's insecurity, like reveal that to me, because I don't want anything in me that's blocking me from knowing you more. And so when that gets revealed to me, now I'm like, okay, so this is an area I need to work on. So then what I do is like look up scriptures that counter that, right? Whether it's anger, that's how I know the scripture, be slow to speak and slow to anger and all those things, because it's like, that's what I try to remember when I want to like lash out or something. I'm like, slow to anger, slow to speak. And that doesn't mean I always do it, because sometimes it gets the best of me. But I am always willing to try to get better, is where is like the difference is. And then another way I don't like really shame myself or like stay down when I do fall is remembering that like a righteous man falls 7 times, but will always get back up, you know? So I think that in itself is good to remember anytime you fall, or like you're shaming yourself over it, is that like the Bible says that they will fall 7 times. That doesn't mean 7 exactly either, you know?
Right. No, right.
You're like, well, perfect. Yeah. You're like, well, I'm at 15.
Yeah, right. So does that mean like I failed, or?
Yeah, but like it just means like you'll continue to fall, but like you get back up. And getting back up is, I feel like even in the, like when you like run, when you're running or something and then you fall, and then instead of staying down and be like, oh, I'm so hurt or whatever, or I scraped my knee or whatever, and you get back up and you continue to run. I feel like even in that visual, you still have the desire to finish. You still have the desire to like go forward, you know? And so even in falling and getting back up, it's like I still have the desire to continue to get to know God and to get better.
But isn't that like a crazy feeling? Like honestly, like I know exactly what you're talking about, because it's like even if you're like beat to the pulp, you're just you're like, I don't want to keep doing it. But like at the end of the day, it's like what would you prefer? You know what I mean?
There is no other option.
There is no other option. Like,
what's the alternative?
No, literally faith over fear. Like, you know, like I'm over here gonna be terrified all the time. Like, no, I would rather be scared, but also know that at the end of the day, like God's got me. You know, and I think also like something that I feel like, you know, being someone that's like on like, you know, continuing to try to elevate their like relationship with God, is that like, I think that like when it comes to like personality, like, you know, we compare ourselves with a lot. And it's funny because my personality is different, you know. I say a few words, and but even if sometimes like with few words, I even catch myself on those. But like I just think that like I realize
the reference of a few words. It's like what you're talking about, but then I know what you're talking about.
We know what a few words, but also like I give myself grace because I also have those moments where it's like I joke around and then I laugh and I'm like, God, I'm so funny. You know, like you get exactly who I am. And like that's something that like reminds me of like I'm not perfect, but like I can still be who I am as long as it's like I'm also trying to make a better version of myself. Like it's like trying not to lose yourself, but also like keeping who you are, but also making a better version, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that I want to call out, and Lord help me remember. First thing, I do like what you said about keeping yourself but being better. Because even with the few words, I was gonna say like there's grace, but it's like we can't abuse the grace, you know. And so the grace is, yeah, I messed up, or yeah, I noticed that and I catch myself, but it's like my heart posture is I do want to get better. I'm not saying I want to stay in my same ways, you know, type of thing.
Yeah.
But the other thing you said about keeping yourself but getting better and like becoming more holy and sanctified and just shredding of the things that are old, you know, just reminds me of like both of our stories, you know. It's like when I gave my life to the Lord and I started to like shred things off, right? Like I was like, okay, I'm no longer going to party, and then I'm no longer going to drink that much, or I'm no longer going to do this or whatever. I started to, it was like kind of like, you feel like, who are you? Yes. A lot of times, you know? And we had this conversation before. You had called me and you were like, I don't feel like I always want to go out anymore and stuff like that. And so I'm like, am I boring? Yeah. And I've had that thought before too, where it was like, am I boring? Or like, what do I want to do? Like, what do I want to do? What is my appetite? Like, what am I supposed to be doing now? You know, because
read a book. You
know? Yeah, which I did. Right, I got into really reading. I got into reading a lot. But I also grieved that old version of me, and was allowing myself to become someone new, because I think we can get attached to so many things, but we can also get attached to versions of ourselves, right? Yeah. And it's like, if I've only known, because I didn't get saved till I was 24, right? And like, yeah, so I didn't get saved till 24, and I think maybe baptized when I was 25. But 24 years of living freely for myself, selfishly, doing whatever I want, trying all these things, experimenting, all those things, like college years and like high school years and stuff like that. It's like, that's who I thought I was, you know? And so then when I become someone different and the Lord is shredding me and showing me who I really am, I'm like, but what do I like? Yeah. You know? And it's like, but this is okay to be not, it's okay to not feel like you're not boring just because you don't do the things you used to do. Yeah. Or like, you're not like a loser or whatever just because you don't drink and go out all the time, or just because you don't do X, Y, and Z that the world tells you to do. Because even now, which is so funny that because the other day I was looking on TikTok, girl, TikTok, you gotta watch yourself with some TikTok sometimes, because I'd be like, but these girls were getting ready to go out or whatever, and I was like, oh, that kind of seems fun. Right. And then I was like, do I want to go out? Right. But I wasn't gonna go out.
Girl, that's a lot of work.
But I was like, do I want to? Right. And I just started to remember who I was when I went out, and I was just like, but that's not me. Like, I know how broken I was in those times. Like, I know, and not to say that if I went out now, I'd still be broken, but it just doesn't fit me anymore, you know? But there was like years of me that being my life. So of course there's like little things that get triggered in me that are like, do I want that again? Yeah. Or do I want to do that? And it's not like I want to do anything crazy, but I was like, maybe going out could be fun or whatever. But like, maybe going out now looks different. You know, what if I think instead of what I realized, thank you, Lord. What I realized is that it wasn't going out to party. I think it's more so the adventure that I seek. Yes. And so like, what does that adventure now look like in my life?
Yeah. No, 1000%. I think that's how I kind of see like going out now. Like, I like to have a good time, but also at the same time, I think that one, I'm getting older, so my body don't like hold up like that. Like, I'll get tired. And then also it's like, same thing like you said, like broken. Like, I feel like it was a norm. I feel like, you know, drinking and all that, like, it was just a normal thing, like having like sex like anytime, whatever, like it was normal. But like, it's hard, but it's also at the same time, like you said, like, it's just easy to know that like it just doesn't feed you anymore. You know what I mean? It doesn't feed you. And then, but it also, you know, I'm in a place sometimes where like I kind of struggle because also at the same time I have a tendency of like thinking to myself, but like these people like are doing these things, and I'm like, and they believe in God, and they seem like they're doing good too, in life and whatnot. And I'm just like, I'm over here praying to you every day, having devotionals. I'm not doing like, I'm not drinking as much. I'm trying not to go out and all that stuff. Like I'm stripping away all these things that you would think is like flesh, but also at the same time, I hate to say it, but like it feels like it's like I'm not getting the end result that I want. Meanwhile, everybody is like, they're invited at the Grammys, or they got this job, or all this stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm not saying they're a bad person, but they're not the holiest.
Yeah.
I would think, I'm working on myself. So it's hard, because then with that being said, it kind of like allows your mind to kind of think that like, oh, I can kind of be in those loopholes and do what I want. You know, same thing with the whole celibacy and like, oh, like I'm going to take, like I can, I don't know if I can not do that. You know what I mean? If I'm in love with someone, then that's fine. But it's just like, I think that way kind of, because it's just like, well, there are some people that are in love and they're like literally like big, huge believers that know the scripture from front to back. And yet they're doing stuff. So it's the comparing. And that's the thing that I kind of struggle with sometimes. And I have to keep reminding myself, well, like Jade, like you have your own relationship with God.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'm like, well, my relationship ain't the funnest right now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, okay, but look over there. Like, I'm like, oh, that party looks nice. Over there, your relationship looks nice with him. But like, for me, I'm just like, I struggle with that. And I try not to get, not angry, but I try not to get annoyed at God for that, because also I know that he's stripping things from me. Yeah. Because just like you said that like, you didn't really know what you liked and all that stuff. I got to a place where I was like, what do I like to do? I just picked up the hobby of reading books. I was like, I didn't realize I would like read a book so quick. You know what I mean? And I've realized that like, it's just a constant struggle. And like perfection, like you said, it's like out of everything, like, yes, I like things tidy about certain stuff, but I think when it comes to my relationship with God, I expect it even more perfect, because it seems like it's so perfect in other people's lives that I feel like I'm always missing something. And I hate that, because now I'm being distracted and I'm not acknowledging like this is what I'm supposed to have with him. Yeah.
Well, I think you hit it nail on the head when you said, well, this is my relationship with God, because we all have our own path, right? And God has a plan for each and every one of us. And so if we're focused on other people and what they're doing, we're missing what God's trying to do in our own life. And I know that's like something that we hear, but it's literal facts. Because anytime I've ever focused on someone else and what they were doing and what they had, everything in my life felt so blurry. Like I couldn't see the purpose in it, you know? But then anytime I'm like laser focused, tunnel vision on what God is doing in my life and focused on my path, then that's when I start to see like things move. And that's when I feel peace and everything, but also convictions are convictions. People have them, some people don't. Right. And who's to say that just because someone else is seemingly getting blessed and doing certain things that they're doing it in the right, because we actually don't know what their relationship with the Lord looks like behind closed doors, or what the Lord is telling them that they might not be able to hear at the moment, or what the Lord is going to strip from them in the future, that he may be stripping from you now. Right. And so it's like, we just don't know, and everything and things like that, like parting, or I don't know, just like things that maybe don't seem holy or whatever, are shakeable things. Yeah. And when it's time, I feel like the Lord will shake everything that can be shaken, And so like, he might be shaking that in you now. And that's the case. And so that's just like your path. That's what you have to go through in order to get to a place where you feel like, wow, I'm really who the Lord is. Like, I feel like I'm walking in who the Lord has called me to be. And it's like, that's what we want. If we're in relationship with God, we want to get to a place where we feel like, wow, I'm really walking in what the Lord said that I'd be walking in, or in who the Lord said I'd be. And that might look like for you, which is the only thing that matters at this moment, not doing anything, right? No, literally, like, that might look like an isolation season. Like, I've gone through like isolation seasons where it was just me and the Lord, and I wasn't doing anything. And it was just because like, and I think that was like probably I don't remember when that was, but I've gone through multiple, right? Because it's like every time the Lord is trying to break me down to build me up, or every time like he's getting ready to reveal something to me or get me to into a different season, like he will remove things, you know, whether that's people, whether that's just like my desire to even watch TV or listen to certain music, like things like that always change because of like where the Lord is trying to take us.
And I think that like with the music and all that, like I've been in a place where like I'm gonna get rid of like I'm gonna stop listening to secular music and all that, but then I think with those, when it comes to fasting, sometimes I go based off of what others are doing. And that's also something that's like a struggle as far as like elevating. It's like, I don't know, it's kind of like having an outline and seeing other people's lives of their relationship with God, and just seeing like, okay, well, they're fasting, so I will try to fast. But I'm like, now the Lord knows I can't do no fasting right now. You know what I mean? Or like if other people are fasting, like they're like, I'm doing the water fast, I'm doing this. I'm like, I love that for you. I'm like, maybe I need to do it. But the thing is like, I noticed my spirit doesn't really feel like it needs it right now. Now, granted, it might be one day, but right now, the Lord knows I can't do it. Like, I think it's like, he's like, that's cute, but right now we're working on the basics right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's again, like, I think that like the main thing that I'm always mentioning during this whole time is like not looking at other people's plates. You know, it's like, it's confusing, especially when you're by yourself too, because sometimes it's like, you know, you think you hear God, but then it's also your mind. Or sometimes you want to know if it's God, but also you can't. It's figuring things out by yourself and trying not to let your environment or people around you influence you, you know, because also it's like, man, that looks nice. You know what I mean? Or God told me this and whatnot. And I'm like, when? You know, like when has he told you that? Because like for me, like a frustration too, I think that like when it comes to like building your relationship with God, it's like sometimes it's like it's not the same thing as another person when they're like, oh, well, he just told me when I was in the shower, or he just told me when I was walking just now. And I'm like, I love that for you. But like every time like I'm silent and I sit silent, I'm just like, this is nice. You know, not like this is nice, like this is nice, but sarcastically, I'm like, okay, like let me hear you. You know, I just feel like I'm so literal with him. And it's just frustrating because I'm like, okay, what is this connection that other people have? And that's like such it's an interesting place to be, because when you're trying to like be better and elevate, it's hard not to also give up at the same time, because it's like, it's not working for you. Right. Working the way that you want, rather than what he wants for you.
Yeah. I think one of the key things with relationships, like my relationship with you is different than my relationship with Mariah, for instance, right? Mariah was the first episode we had in the season, but like it's different. That's how it is with God too. My relationship with God is different than your relationship with God. And that's what you have to find is like, what does your relationship with the Lord look like? And I think the first point to that is removing all your distractions of comparison, you know, like not comparing to other people. Because we don't actually know, you know, if the Lord told him that, the Lord told him that. That's great. But also, like, the Lord could be trying to tell you something, but you can't hear him because you're too focused on everybody else. You know what I mean? And so, like, it does take, in order and to like hear the Lord, I feel like it takes discipline and devotion sometimes to like give him consistent intentional time. Because even when there's been times where I'm like, I'm giving God intentional time, and the whole time I'm distracted in my head, you know, or I'm reading Bible and I'm distracted, or I'm journaling, thinking about like how long I have to journal because I have to actually start getting ready in like 10 minutes. So like, let me give him 5 minutes here, you know? And so it's like, we like want the Lord to speak to us sometimes, but we're not even giving him the time or the intention. This is not necessarily you, I'm just saying in general, but like that he needs to speak. But I think, but yeah, relationships, your relationship is going to look different than everybody else's to the Lord. But at the end of the day, we're all God's children. And he has a plan that is good for all of us, you know?
Yeah. In the beginning, like, did you like how was your, I guess, not connection, but like when your relationship in the beginning, your journey, and then now, like, were you hearing him like easy? Like, was it hard? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what was that like in
the beginning? So I found the Lord at a very like low and broken place, you know, like I had been called to move back out here to LA from San Francisco. I had like the beginning of 2016, the Lord said to move to LA at the end of the year. And then I got into a relationship, I got a job, all these things. And then, so when time started to come, I started to think in my head like, oh, I'm just going to push it off. I'm not going to move. And the Lord shook everything up in that time. But what's funny that in the beginning of 2016, I didn't know it was the Lord telling me that, but now I know it's the Lord because I wasn't in relationship with God. So I didn't know how I heard him, but I just felt this feeling in me to like leave and go to LA at the end of the year. So then once it was almost time and I was like thinking about not coming, I wasn't even planning on it anymore until later the Lord like shook everything up. And I didn't know that was all the Lord until later when I found God and God broke it all down to me. But so when I got saved and stuff, I found a very broken place. And I felt like I was like, I'm out in LA. I don't know what I'm going to do for work. I don't have a car. I don't have anything. I don't have a job, anything like that. But I'm going to start going to this church. And that's all I know. And so when I started to hear in the beginning, I don't know if I heard him clearly, but I just felt like he was navigating my steps, if that makes sense. Like I was kind of like a puppet. But like I just knew I needed more. Right. And I knew that like what I had come from was not where I wanted to be. Like I was aware that I was broken. I was like so heartbroken. I was so like, I was crying all the time, didn't know where my life was going, but I knew I was in the right place. And that was in LA in church. You know? And so in the beginning, to answer your question, like, I don't think I was hearing him super clearly. I just knew I just needed to keep doing what I needed to do I just like knew I needed to keep going to church and I needed to figure out what this Christian relationship that everybody talked about was, right? And so I just kept going and I was consistent, and then I started to serve and get in community. And then even when I had to leave an old friendship, I don't remember if I actually heard the Lord say it, but he graced it to end. And so, and by that, I mean, like, we were supposed to have a conversation about an argument we had, me and this friend. And I just never went to the argument, and she never contacted me about it.
And one thing God gonna do is end it for you
the
way he want to do it.
He would grace it. So he was just kind of like navigating my steps and setting up things for like gracing things to happen and opening doors, closing doors, things like that. So I don't think I was like, I heard the Lord say for like the first year or a couple years or something.
It's just
but I could always feel it. Like in 2018 is probably when he told me to do this podcast. It's probably one of the most clearest signs I've ever had to do something from him, like hearing him, but it wasn't like audibly. I don't hear the Lord audibly. I hear him in my thoughts. And I heard Stephen Furtick once say this, and it was so relatable because it's like, I hear him in my mind, right? But I also have the enemy in my mind, and I have me in my mind.
Right.
So it's always this like deciphering I have to do in my head to figure out who is talking to me. Right. And like what I realize is that anything that is love comes from the Lord, because I don't even speak to myself sometimes with love. And I know how I sound to myself. So
harsh.
Like, and then other things that are trying to have me doubt or be insecure or make me believe that people think things about me is probably the enemy. But when it comes from love and understanding, I notice it's the Lord. So now I can hear him a lot clearer, and like I have like my good routine, or just more so like indicator of like who's talking, you know. But what I've had to do is, as I get busier, because there are moments and seasons where I've been busy and not been able to hear the Lord clearly because I was too busy with everything else in my life, whether that be like work, personal life, and also just like my own thoughts in life, the own world things, like taking up our mind and space, you know, or being so distracted by social media or focused on that. And so I've had seasons where I couldn't hear him clearly because I was too busy. And anytime I don't hear the Lord, I'm like, I need to fast, or I need to like clear everything and open up my space to hear him. And then once I hear him, I'm like, oh, okay, there he is. But So yeah, now I hear him clearly, but it's always, I have to be intentional about it.
Yeah.
A lot of times, sometimes it'll be randomly, like in the car,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like worshiping, or he'll just like randomly say something to me. But sometimes when I'm so busy and heads down on things, like I work and I do this podcast and all the other things,
Mm-hmm.
I have to be intentional about like making sure I'm spending time with him to hear from him,
Mm-hmm.
because I could go a week without hearing because I'm so busy, but still be reading my Bible and praying and stuff like that.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like a nagging feeling too. Like you can feel it and you're like, okay, this keeps coming up for some reason, but I don't know why. And then that's like, okay, maybe I should like take a step back and like do that. Yeah. It's funny, like you mentioned, while you were talking, I also thought about like something that like I realized when it came to like, building, it's putting a label on being a Christian, like a good Christian versus a bad Christian. If you're doing something wrong, you're a bad Christian. You know what I mean? Or if you're making a mistake, then you're not good. And that means you're not living up to it, because I feel like the stigma also that I was like so afraid of is that like you have to be perfect. You have to do good. You can't do this. You can't have sex before marriage. You can't do that. And like, I feel like sometimes I feel this all the time, a no. And I don't know. I just, now that like I'm in a place of like being better and more refined, I think that it's interesting seeing now on the outside of other people, like, or my friends or whatnot, that are in the same position, but they're on a different level. Like, you know what I mean? Like I finally got to a place, not finally, but like I've gotten to a place where like I've asked myself, I'm like, I don't feel judgment. I don't try to judge people, but I find myself when I hear people that are also like working on their relationship with God and like they say certain stuff or they do certain stuff, I don't want to say judgment because I try not to judge, but also I find myself like my heart posture is different, because before I would be like, oh yeah, girl, yeah, that's right. That's what you need to do. Or you are so right, like relating. But now for me, I find the need to sometimes either correct someone or like feel like, oh, like that didn't really sit right in my spirit. I didn't really like that you said that, and like let me go ahead and like give you something better. So like with that, I'm also in a place where I want to help lead people to be in the same position as I am, to like get better and elevate, but also I don't want to judge and make them feel like how I felt when it came to like certain people like in my life, where it made me feel like I'm still making the same mistakes and people are like, and they're judging me for it. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
No, that does make sense. And I think it's so funny.
Not forgetting where you came from.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not forgetting where you came from. Because it's never too far from us. But
he'll remind you too.
Yeah.
It's like, please.
But it's so funny because in the beginning of our conversation, you're kind of like, like I'm like struggling in this area or whatever, or like still having that wanting to do that or whatever. And then right now you're speaking and you're like, well, now I feel like a little bit, I know you mean not like higher, but like more so like I've grown more.
Right.
And so when I see people that are maybe like more fresh or like are still kind of dabbling into like that world or whatever, I'm like, well, maybe you should do it this way and stuff. And so it's like there is growth there, and that's kind of what we were talking about earlier, where the Lord changes your appetite and it's a gradual thing. Sometimes one day you just realize, actually, I don't think I like that anymore. Or I actually don't think I want to do that anymore, but I think the judgmental thing is so good. And it's good to have a heart posture of like, let me make sure that I'm not judging them, even if it's in my head.
So then like, what is it then? Because like, as far as like judgment, like, it's not judgment, but also at the same time, it's not, I feel like mentally, it's like also it's not accepting to God either, like spiritually, like, you know what I mean? It's like you can, because at the end of the day, it's like, okay, like, sure, I can give you grace, but also at the same time, like, you know what I mean? It's like, wait, girl, so what are you doing?
Are you saying, okay, so what is your thought process though in those times? Well, because that's what'll tell you whether or not you're judging.
Well, because I guess in my my thought process would be like, okay, that's not what it means. Like, like that's not what like, like, yes, like for instance, like we could turn up for Jesus, you know, on all that. We love him. But also at the same time, it's like, I think it's the wording, I guess, you know, it's the wording of how we like think of like making, I've realized I basically am saying like, I know how we can make loopholes about being better. I mean, okay, let me get my mind thought. I think to myself, like, oh, like, basically wanting to save that person from not making the same mistake as I am. And like kind of like being like, oh no, like yes, like yeah, you can like, you know, turning up and going out and all that stuff is great and all, but also at the same time, like let's not forget God is giving you grace for that. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't want you just always like being out and about and like being in these streets. You know what I mean? Like you can, but how are you out here? You know what I mean? And with that being said, it's like it makes me want to correct them and be like, okay, like you're seeing it wrong. But also at the same time, I have to remind myself, I'm like, well, Jay, I mean, you saw it wrong too, because you thought you could over here, you know, go do this and then wake up in the next day to go to church. And then and you're not going to have that conviction. You know what I mean? So, but I think the judgment where it comes from is, it's not judgment. I feel
I don't
like
think
it's
it's judgment.
It's not judgment. It's
so
a negative connotation.
Well, no, I think it just, when I'm hearing you talk, I don't feel like it's bad. Okay, because we go through things and we see things first before other people, or we learn from things before other people so that we can help other people. It's our testimony.
And I just don't want them to feel bad though, you know, make them feel bad for making a same mistake.
As long as you're not like doing it in a critical way or like you're gonna go to HE double hockey sticks for it, or
that's
like
crazy.
You shouldn't be going to church talking like that or whatever, you know, you're sinning, stuff like that, then it's not. I think if it's coming from a place of like, yeah, I was like that too. I totally get it. But like, you know, what I've learned is X, Y, and Z. Then it's more so giving wisdom. You know, it's like being a friend to someone. It's like, you don't want to be a yes friend either. You don't want to be someone that's like, yes, go ahead, girl, go live your best life and come to church, whatever. You know, like, still come to church regardless. Church is for everybody. But like, you don't want to be a yes person. So you want to speak up where you know it's like, oh, well, maybe it doesn't mean that, you know. But I think it all just is in your delivery and your tone, and that's not being judgmental or like being critical. Because I was looking at judgmental person because I was like, let's see the actual word.
What is it?
It's to describe someone who often rushes to judgment without reason. But like, you're not rushing to judgment without reason. You're saying it because you've been there and you know it. And the Lord has corrected you on it, you know? And it's usually people that are being harsh or critical. So as long as, so it's like, I think because maybe you just like don't want to hurt someone's feelings. But it's not hurting someone's feelings. Essentially, you're helping that person, you know?
And I like find myself like, when that happens, I'm like, I don't want it to come off like, oh, she's so holy now, and she's over here telling me what to do and all that, or like, oh, she thinks like I'm better. I'm like, no, I don't think that, because again, if we could have a scale of like how far I am in my relationship and my like level of like getting higher, it's you know, it's still a good middle, you know, and like it's like, but also at the same time, it's just interesting on the outside looking in when you're not there anymore. You know, so it's just like, I don't know.
I think as long as you control how you say it and how it's delivered from there, and it's from this place of love and not like you're trying to be critical or rude or anything like that, then that's all you can do, especially if it's on your heart. Because sometimes the Holy Spirit will have us say something to someone, you know, and it's like, no, but I want them to feel bad or whatever. But like, if the Holy Spirit wants you to talk it, he's already graced the conversation. And so as long as you control how you say it and you like control your tone or whatever and not be critical, then that's all you have to do. That was your only job, you know. How they receive it is not up to you. But they can also the Lord can also soften their heart to hear your words properly, you know. So you don't really have to worry about how other people are perceiving it, you know. All right, that's a wrap. Do you have one more thing?
No, girl. Look, you know, I know it's taking a while.
No, it's fine.
I don't really think so. I mean, I think the one thing that just came to my mind that I thought about is also like, it's your heart posture that matters.
Yeah.
You know, regarding to just in general with your relationship with God. I think that like no matter what, like God knows what you're doing. He knows where you're at. He knows who you are. And it's just a matter of like how you bring him to the table. And that like more so just like being just realizing that like he really can be with you everywhere, you know, like he's always around in any setting, even if it's like a setting where you wouldn't think that like you could go for spring break and randomly like, you know,
encounter someone that like, needs prayer or something,
who needs prayer, or like you're literally like it's a spring break moment in college, right? And all of a sudden we didn't have to do this, but like we started singing Our God is an Awesome God randomly before we were like leaving the hotel. You know what I mean? It's just like knowing that God is in every different room with you, no matter what, and just like acknowledging how strong that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and not dimming.
Yeah, you know, that's what I meant. Like just knowing that like you don't always have to take him in the good parts. Like you can always take him also.
Oh yeah.
Like,
no, yeah. I see. No, 100%.
Because he shows up, you know.
Because you never know who could encounter God as a result of that.
Exactly.
That's true.
Because I've been told like people, like my friend has told me, she's like, you know, Jade, I realize like you're not afraid to like talk about God or mention him anytime or anywhere we go. I'm like, it sure don't, because the world's already crazy. Right. I was like, the world's already crazy. Like, he's gonna be with me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's right. He's gonna stick beside me.
He my friend.
He's my friend. Like,
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yay.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. We'll end episode. Say one last word, like little phrase, and I'll say one, you say one, and then I will end. Stay prayed up.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have yours?
Yeah, but let me make sure I say it in the right order.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and go. Like, let me just double check. You know.
Not you wrote it down.
No, Googled it. If anything.
Okay, what was mine gonna be?
Yours is probably a whole sentence.
No, it's gonna be short. I'm trying to make it short, but I'm trying to figure out what I was gonna say. Okay. Okay, I'll say this. Don't allow shame to keep you from the Lord.
Ooh, I like that. Oh, okay. Well,
what was yours?
It was gonna be the same thing that I brought up in the beginning. It's just like, you know, belong, believe, and you know,
belong, believe.
Yeah, belong, believe, and behave.
Belong, believe, and behave. I like.
Girl,
that.
Say that 3 times.
Belong, believe, behave. No, I'm just kidding. All right, and then we'll.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, so belong, believe, and behave.
I love it. Okay, and then we'll say stay prayed up. 1, 2, 3.
Stay prayed up.
Oh.
Okay.
Different rhythms.
Wait, is it supposed to be high? Was it supposed to be
no,
like
it's
low?
Good. It's
okay,
good.
Okay.
Let it flow however
right.
however it is.
Okay.
We're
good.
done.
Yay.